I'm Catalina Thompson, and by the time I was 33, I had my own veterinary clinic, a doctorate, and a carefully controlled life built on discipline and quiet sacrifice. But all of that shattered the night my sister showed up at my door. High, bruised, and clutching a barefoot toddler I didn't know existed. Her name was Mia, and from that moment on, I became a mother in every way except by law. For 2 years, I raised her, loved her, healed her. And then, just like that, my sister took her back. 5 years later, at Vanessa's glamorous engagement dinner, a single question from her fiancé changed everything. Where is Mia now? What came next unraveled our entire family. Before I share the full truth, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever carried someone else's chaos like it was your own, hit like and subscribe. Because this story might be the mirror you didn't know you needed. People used to tell me I was the lucky one. Firstborn, straight-A student. Full ride to UC Davis, doctor of veterinary medicine by 28. But they didn't see the whole picture. They didn't grow up in the Miller house, where responsibility was rewarded with silence and chaos with applause. Where I cleaned up broken glasses while my sister got extra dessert for saying sorry with a smile. Vanessa was 2 years younger than me, but the gap between us wasn't age. It was gravity. I moved like stone, predictable and steady. She moved like fire, burning through rules and consequences as if they were suggestions. Our parents, God bless them, couldn't stop praising her spirit. She's just got personality, Cat, my dad would say when she skipped school again. She's figuring herself out. Funny, no one ever said I was figuring myself out when I cried quietly in the bathroom after Vanessa crashed my prom night. I learned early. Quiet girls are expected to forgive loudly, so I did, every single time. We grew up in Santa Barbara, in a tan stucco house 5 blocks from the beach. My dad taught high school art, my mom did books for a landscaping company. We weren't rich, but they always made sure Vanessa had what she wanted. Me? I got what I earned, and sometimes I got what she stole. By sophomore year of high school, Vanessa had a reputation. She could charm her way out of detentions, relationships, and eventually, responsibility. When I got into vet school, she threw a party in our parents' house without telling me. It wasn't a celebration for my acceptance. It was an excuse to drink tequila with her new boyfriend, someone I had dated the semester before. She swore she didn't know. Cat, you're too sensitive, she laughed, licking salt from the back of her hand. We only kissed. Once. The pattern continued like a bad inheritance. She'd light the match, I'd sweep the ashes. One summer, when I was interning at a wildlife center in Arizona, she used my social security number to apply for a business loan. She wanted to launch a luxury pet fashion brand. I found out 3 months later, after a bank flagged my credit. She was already off the radar by then, allegedly backpacking in Peru. I handled the damage control, quietly, alone. I never told our parents. I didn't want to be the reason they saw her differently. I thought protecting her meant protecting us. I thought that's what family meant. But looking back, I was just enabling a pattern she had no intention of breaking. Vanessa didn't have to face consequences because I absorbed them all. I wore her shame like a second skin while she danced through life in sparkles. Our mother called it sisterhood. I called it a slow erasure. In every photo from our childhood, I'm the one with her hands folded, chin slightly tilted, smiling for the camera. Vanessa is mid-laugh, mid-mess, frosting on her cheek, shoelaces untied. And still, somehow, the spotlight followed her. The more I achieved, the more invisible I felt. At my white coat ceremony, my mom spent more time talking about Vanessa's new Instagram modeling contract than my doctorate. Your sister just hit 10,000 followers, she whispered, while I adjusted my stethoscope. Isn't that wild, wild? That was their word for her. Wild and bright. I was steady, practical, reliable, a walking insurance policy in scrubs. She called me Dr. Cat, always with an edge, like a joke she hadn't finished telling. Wow, so you're basically a nurse for animals, she once said at Thanksgiving, sipping Merlot and making eyes at my then-boyfriend across the table. 2 weeks later, he dumped me. 3 weeks after that, I saw them tagged together in a photo at a concert. I didn't say a word. I remember thinking, this is just who she is, Maybe love means you don't keep a scoreboard. Maybe I'm stronger because I don't need the applause, but it wears you down. Forgiveness loses its flavor when it's served too often. The last straw, the one I didn't tell anyone about, came just before I opened my clinic. I'd spent years saving every cent, working overnight emergency shifts to fund my own practice. And then, one morning, I got a call from a leasing office in Venice Beach, congratulating me on securing a storefront under Catalina Miller Petwear LLC. I hadn't applied, but someone had, using my name, my credentials, and a forged signature. There was no mystery. I knew who. The same handwriting on the forms had signed fake sick notes in high school. Vanessa. When I finally reached her, she laughed. I was just borrowing the name. Don't be dramatic. Her tone was cool, annoyed that I'd disrupted her afternoon brunch. You don't even want to do fashion. You've got your vet thing. This isn't a big deal. That was the moment I realized. She didn't just cross lines. She didn't even see them. And maybe I was done redrawing them. I paid off the fines, shut down the fraudulent LLC, repaired what I could of my credit. Again, I said nothing to our parents. Again, they saw her as ambitious, creative, just a little impulsive. But a part of me, quiet and growing, began to wonder what would happen if I stopped covering for her. If I stopped biting my tongue until it bled. I buried that thought, buried it with the rest, and I focused on what I could control. My clinic, my clients, my quiet little life. Because for some of us, survival doesn't come from being seen. It comes from staying quiet enough not to be blamed. There's something that shifts in your body the moment you hear someone you love say, "Don't tell anyone," especially at 2:13 a.m., when your phone lights up with a name you haven't spoken to in months. Vanessa. Her voice was shredded. "Kat, I need help. Please don't hang up. Don't tell Mom. Just, please come." No context. Just a room number at a roadside motel in East LA and silence. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my keys and my coat and drove through 2 counties, running on caffeine, adrenaline, and the kind of fear only family can induce. The place reeked of mold and bleach. I found room 109. The door cracked open before I knocked. My sister stood in the shadows, mascara streaked, one arm bruised, lip split. She looked like someone had drained the light out of her and replaced it with something bitter and gray. But it wasn't her that stopped me cold. It was the child behind her. A little girl, maybe 2 years old, sitting on the edge of the bed, barefoot, hair tangled, lips dry, staring at me like I was either her rescuer or her next problem. Vanessa caught my gaze and muttered, "Her name's Mia." My stomach dropped. "Yours?" She nodded once. "Yeah, no drama, no tears, just that." Like telling me she'd adopted a cat or bought a blender. For a moment, all I could do was look at Mia. She didn't flinch, didn't smile, just watched. Her silence screamed louder than anything Vanessa could say. The room was trashed. Bottles, pills, cigarette burns on the carpet. I scanned Vanessa's arms, needle marks, faint, faded, but there. "Jesus, V. I didn't mean for it to be like this," she whispered. "He found out, about her. He hit me, took my phone. I got away, but she hasn't eaten since yesterday. I didn't know where else to go." I knelt in front of Mia. "Hey there," I said softly. "You hungry?" She blinked once, then nodded. I took them both, back to my place, my tiny apartment above the clinic. I didn't think, I just moved. Got Mia into the bath, fed her slowly, toast, applesauce, crackers. Cleaned the cuts on Vanessa's face. Called in a favor with a doctor friend to quietly check her out. No police, no social workers, not yet. I told myself this was temporary, a band-aid, just until things stabilized. But deep down, I already knew. This was different. This wasn't Vanessa crashing another relationship or scamming another check. This was a child. And that child was breaking my heart every time she looked at me like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to exist. The next morning, while Vanessa slept off the crash, I sat on the floor with Mia and held out a stuffed animal, an old fox I kept in a forgotten box. She reached for it like she'd never been offered something soft before. That night, I set up a cot next to my bed. Mia clung to my arm as she fell asleep. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was always the same word. Stay. 3 days later, I drove Vanessa to a rehab center. She didn't argue, didn't cry. She just looked at Mia from the car window and said, "Be good, baby," before turning away. I became Mia's everything. Overnight, I went from woman who had a plan to full-blown emergency mom. Diapers, fevers, night terrors, screams that shook the walls at 3 a.m. when she dreamed of men I'd never met. She refused to be left alone in any room. She needed light, constant reassurance, gentle touch. But over time, something shifted. She started to hum. She laughed when the clinic's golden retriever licked her face. She called me Auntie. Then, a few weeks later, Mama. And I didn't correct her, because somewhere between potty training and reading bedtime stories, I'd fallen in love with her. In the purest, fiercest way I had ever known. Not the love of blood or obligation, the love of presence, of showing up, of watching her become someone safer, stronger, less afraid. Vanessa called once a week from rehab, asked how Mia was doing, promised she'd stay clean. I said what she needed to hear, but in the back of my mind, I waited for the crash, because with Vanessa, there was always a crash. When she got out after 8 months, she looked better, healthier, almost unrecognizable. She wore white again, carried a designer bag, introduced me to Julian, her new boyfriend, a real estate investor with perfect teeth and perfect delusions. He shook my hand and said, "I've heard a lot about you." I didn't reply. Vanessa smiled too wide. "We're moving to Scottsdale. Julian has a place there. Big yard. Private preschool nearby. We want Mia to come." I held Mia's hand tighter. She was clutching her plush fox. "You've been amazing," Vanessa said, faux sweet. "But it's time she's with her real mom." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her who fed that child, who rocked her to sleep, who paid for her therapy, who held her through every nightmare. But I didn't. Because legally, she was right. Vanessa had rights. I didn't. I was the stand-in, the backup, the human bridge she used while she built her next fantasy. I tried to negotiate. Let's ease her in. Shared time, a transition. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "She's 2, Kat. She'll bounce." She didn't bounce. She sobbed, screamed, clawed at me when they took her from my arms. I told her I'd visit, that I'd call, that this wasn't goodbye, but it was. Because 2 weeks later, Vanessa blocked my number, and Mia became a ghost with my heartbeat. Grief doesn't always show up in black. Sometimes it arrives in a hospital gown, under fluorescent lights, with no one waiting in the lobby. 3 weeks after Mia was taken, I collapsed in the middle of my clinic's break room. 1 minute I was loading vaccine trays. The next I was on the tile floor, clutching my abdomen like it held every betrayal I'd swallowed for years. By the time I came to, a nurse had called 911. Ruptured appendix, complications, severe infection, 2 surgeries, 5 days in the ICU, and 1 sentence that fractured me more than the scalpel ever could. "We did everything we could, but you'll likely be unable to conceive." I didn't cry. Not then. Not when the doctor gently explained the internal scarring. Not when the nurse offered a fertility specialist card. Not even when they wheeled me out of recovery into a room that smelled like bleach and unasked questions. I waited until I was alone, and then I screamed. Not because I wanted children, I wasn't sure I ever did, but because the choice had been taken from me. Because my body had broken under the weight of silence. Because I had sacrificed myself for a child I couldn't protect. For a sister who would never say thank you, and for a family that never even asked what it cost me. Dean tried. He brought flowers to the hospital, held my hand while I pretended to be okay. He was kind. He meant well. But after Mia, and now this, I wasn't the same woman he'd fallen in love with. I was jagged, closed off. He said I didn't let him in anymore. I said I didn't know where in was. We lasted another 2 months. Then one night, he packed up his things and whispered, "You've built walls I can't climb." I didn't stop him. I didn't have the energy to. And just like that, it was all gone. The child, the man, the future. I shut down emotionally like someone flipping a breaker. I sold the apartment, closed the clinic, moved north to Oregon. A new town, new job, new name on the mailbox. I told people I liked the trees, the quiet, the rain. What I didn't say was that I needed distance, not just from Vanessa, but from the version of myself that kept burning her hands for warmth that never came. For a while, I lived like a ghost, working at a modest animal shelter, keeping conversations shallow, never staying in one place long enough to be noticed. I didn't do holidays, I didn't do birthdays. When Mom called, I let it go to voicemail. When Vanessa texted me a photo of Mia on her 3rd birthday, I stared at it for 6 minutes, then deleted it. No reply. That was the last message I ever got from her. The silence was sharp at first, but eventually it became habit. You'd be amazed how fast you learn to numb the part of yourself that wants closure, that wants justice, that wants answers. But even in the quiet, Mia never left me. Every time I saw a little girl with curls and skinned knees, I flinched. Every time I passed a toy aisle, I avoided the plush animals. Every time I heard someone say, "Mama," my stomach twisted in ways even surgery couldn't explain. I told myself she was fine. I told myself Vanessa had changed, that Julian was stable, that Mia was in a big house with warm meals and pool parties. But deep down, I knew better. And the worst part? I let it happen. I gave her back. I didn't fight. Because at the time, I thought loving someone meant sacrificing everything, including yourself. Turns out, there's a cost for that. And I'd only just started paying it. You'd think 5 years of silence would be enough to make your past forget you, but mine has sharp teeth. It waited until the moment my phone rang with my mother's voice, soft and sugary like always, as if nothing had happened. "Vanessa's getting engaged," she said. "We're doing a dinner, just a small thing, family." She paused, then added, "It'd mean a lot if you came." She never said it would mean a lot to her, just if you came. Like an obligation wrapped in a compliment. I almost said no, I wanted to, but something in me, something restless and unresolved, needed to see it for myself, how well my sister had rewritten the story, how easily she had moved on while I kept breathing in the ashes she left behind. So I said yes. I flew back to San Diego, wore a black jumpsuit I knew Vanessa would hate, and walked into that overpriced restaurant ready to play the role they'd always written for me. The quiet sister, the one who endures. The place was glassy and loud, full of chandeliers pretending to be modern art. There were flowers on every table and menus printed with our names in cursive gold foil. My mother hugged me like a stranger, quick and hollow. My father nodded like I was an old classmate he hadn't seen since college. It didn't surprise me. The version of me they loved had vanished the moment I stopped cleaning up after Vanessa. They weren't interested in the woman who'd stopped apologizing for being tired. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes late, draped in a deep red silk dress that whispered drama with every step. Her hair was curled, makeup perfect, ring enormous. She walked in like a movie star, one who'd edited the script to erase the parts where she lost custody, lied, and disappeared. Derek followed behind her in a charcoal suit. He was handsome in that understated way that made women look twice. But it was his eyes that caught me, focused, steady, watching everything. She spotted me instantly. "Cat?" she squealed, gliding over like she was in a commercial for champagne and second chances. She kissed the air near my cheek and took a long, deliberate look at my outfit. Still doing the whole low-effort look, I see. Gutsy. "I could say the same about your entrance," I replied, smiling with my teeth locked. "Oh, come on," she laughed, linking arms with Derek. "Don't be such a mood, sis. Tonight's about love." Her voice stretched the word like it was something she'd just invented. Dinner was a parade of curated toasts and forced laughter. Vanessa dominated the room with stories that always ended in applause. Her friends giggled on cue. My mother clutched her wine like it was holding her upright. I ate slowly, answered questions with one-word replies, and stared at the engagement ring on Vanessa's hand like it was a ticking clock. Halfway through dessert, she turned to me, eyes gleaming. "So, Kat," she began, loud enough for the table to hush around her, "still living up in the woods with your rescue animals? Or did you finally join the real world?" A few people chuckled. One of Vanessa's friends leaned in with a smirk. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. My mother smiled into her wine. I put down my fork, took a sip of water, and looked Vanessa dead in the eyes. "Still saving lives. Still less exhausting than saving your messes." "Oof," she said, mock-wounded. "Touchy, I was just joking." Then Derek spoke, calm, quiet, controlled. Actually, I have a question. Vanessa stiffened. Derek. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. Kat, would you mind telling us what really happened with Mia? The room froze. Laughter died. Glasses stilled mid-air. My stomach dropped like it had been yanked from a cliff. Vanessa's voice cut through the tension, brittle and sharp. What the hell are you doing? My mother stammered. Now's really not the time. Derek stayed calm. I think it is. I've asked Vanessa about it. But every time, the story changes. I want to hear it from the person who was actually there. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I glanced at my sister, her expression caught between fear and fury. I looked at my mother, eyes pleading, as always, to keep the peace, no matter what it cost. And then I looked at Derek. His face held no judgment, just clarity. And in that moment, I understood. He already knew something. He just wanted to see if I'd lie too. So I set down my glass, straightened my spine, and said, You really want the truth? You really want the truth? I asked again, letting the words settle like ash on the linen-covered table. Every pair of eyes was on me now. Forks stilled mid-bite. Glasses hung suspended. Even the candlelight seemed to flicker slower. Vanessa's lips parted in protest, but Derek raised a hand, just a small, steady gesture, and she stopped. She looked at him like a stranger had hijacked her fiancé's body. The truth. It used to feel like a sharp object, something dangerous if held too long. But in that moment, it felt like air, dense, inevitable, and choking all at once. I looked at my parents first. My mother had that same smile she always wore when someone else's comfort mattered more than mine. My father avoided my eyes. Typical. Then I turned to Derek. He didn't blink. Yes, I said quietly. I'll tell you, but don't expect it to be pretty. 5 years ago, I began, folding my hands tightly. Vanessa showed up at my place in the middle of the night, bruised, high, and holding a baby. Her baby. I heard someone gasp. I kept going. Mia was too, hungry, barefoot, afraid of her own shadow. Vanessa begged me not to call the cops, begged me to take them in, said she'd clean up, go to rehab. She just needed a safe place for a while. I gave her mine. The table was silent. Even Vanessa had gone still, her posture taut like glass about to crack. When she left for rehab, I continued, I took care of Mia. 8 months. I was there for every nightmare, every scraped knee, every time she whimpered in her sleep. She called me Mama by the 3rd month, and I let her, because I loved her. My voice didn't shake. I'd already bled for this truth in private. I wasn't going to tremble now. When Vanessa got out, she came back with a new man and a new plan. Said she was stable, that it was time for Mia to go home. I begged her not to rush it. Mia cried every night for a week after they left. Then Vanessa changed her number, cut me off, just like that. I paused, letting the last sentence thud between us like a dropped dish. Then I looked at Vanessa. You blocked me. After everything I gave up for you, you didn't even let her say goodbye. Vanessa laughed, brittle and forced. You're twisting things. God, you always make yourself the hero. It's pathetic. I'm not the hero, I said evenly. But I was the only one showing up when you couldn't even feed your own daughter, she scoffed. Mia's fine. We gave her everything. Private school, a backyard, a real family. Derek leaned in then. Is she, Vanessa? Is she fine? Because I've asked you that, and you've never had a real answer. Vanessa's eyes flicked to him. What are you saying? I'm saying, he replied, voice low, that if you're going to marry me, I deserve to know who I'm marrying. I found pictures of Mia. Then nothing. No trace of her the last 2 years. No school records. No pediatric visits. You told me she went to live with her father, but that was a lie, wasn't it? The room spun slowly. My mother finally spoke. Vanessa, is this true? Where is Mia? I don't owe anyone an explanation, she snapped, pushing back from the table. This was supposed to be a celebration, of us. I stared at her, 100 thoughts pounding through my head. But the one that rose above the rest was, she doesn't even flinch when cornered. Still, I saw it. A flicker in her eyes. Guilt or fear. Maybe both. I stood up. If you really want to celebrate something honest, I said, maybe start by telling the truth about your daughter. Derek stood too, not beside her, but beside me. And just like that, the balance of the evening tipped. Not loudly, not violently, but in that quiet, calculated way only truth can shift a room. For a long moment, the dining room was frozen. Wine glasses hovered in midair. The low-string quartet in the corner continued playing, painfully unaware of the silence that had consumed the guests. I stared at Vanessa, waiting for her to say something, anything that would redeem the last 5 years. But she just blinked, like a screen buffering, no content behind her eyes. Beside her, Derek looked like someone who'd just realized he'd proposed to a ghost. My mother, red with tension, forced a smile and gestured toward the dessert tray, like the moment could be salvaged with tiramisu. "Let's all calm down. We can discuss this later, in private." Her voice cracked at the end. It always did when her control started slipping. My father said nothing, eyes fixed on his empty plate. The cowardice was familiar. "I'm not doing this later," I said, standing. "We've done later long enough. Mia was your granddaughter, your niece, your daughter, and none of you cared enough to ask where she went after Vanessa blocked my number." "You don't know what you're talking about," Vanessa snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. "You don't know what it was like. She didn't sleep, she screamed for hours, she wouldn't eat anything but strawberries and plain toast. She had nightmares I couldn't wake her from. I couldn't live like that." "She wasn't a bad dream," I said coldly. "She was a little girl trying to survive a mother who vanished, and an aunt who let her go." Derek shifted in his seat and pulled a folded sheet from his jacket. I didn't even blink as he handed it across the table to my father. "These are county records, foster placement, Mia Rowe, age 7, entered the system October 2023 after being left unattended for 2 days." The words landed like bricks. My father paled. My mother gasped. Someone at the next table stood and moved away. I didn't flinch. I'd already imagined 100 worse versions in my head. This one simply confirmed the thing I'd feared. I hadn't lost Mia to my sister. I'd handed her over to the void. "You put her in foster care." My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Every person in that room could feel the weight of it. Vanessa looked down, as if shame was something she wore only when forced. "She wouldn't stop crying," she said softly. "I was barely making rent. I'd just gotten out of rehab. Derek was always traveling. I thought someone else could give her more." "But you didn't tell anyone," Derek said, tone laced with quiet disgust. "You let me believe she was with her father, that she was happy, safe, and all this time, she was alone in some government building waiting for a stranger to decide if she was worth keeping." I looked at Vanessa, truly looked at her, and saw not the sister I grew up with, but a woman hollowed out by ego and fear. "You abandoned her twice," I whispered. "Once when she needed a mother, and again when she needed the truth." Vanessa's jaw clenched. "Don't pretend like you're so righteous. You gave her up too." I stepped closer. "I gave her back to you. I believed you were ready. That rehab had changed you, that maybe, just maybe, you could love someone more than you loved being adored. But I was wrong, and now she's paid for both of our failures." The guests began excusing themselves, murmuring apologies as they passed. My mother looked like she wanted to crawl inside her purse and vanish, but Derek didn't move. He turned to me instead, voice quiet but firm. "We can find her, Kat. She's still in the system. I've already called a friend in child services. There's a trail." I nodded, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "I want to see her. I need to." Vanessa suddenly stood, her chair screeching across the floor. "You don't get to take her from me again. She's my daughter." "You left her," I said simply. "You left me," she shot back. "You turned your back when I needed you most." "I gave you everything," I said, shaking. "My home, my savings, my body. I bled out in an ER room because of the stress and the grief. They took out both ovaries, Vanessa. I can't have children anymore, and I still didn't hate you. I grieved you like a sister I lost in a fire you lit yourself." She froze, one hand trembling near her wine glass. "I lost Julian too. He left a month after the surgery. Said I was too broken, that I didn't laugh anymore. I didn't tell him about Mia because I didn't want pity. I wanted to be enough on my own." Silence. Then Vanessa whispered, "I didn't know." "No, you didn't care to ask," I said. Derek placed a hand on my arm, grounding me. His voice was steady. "Let's go. You don't need to stay here. We'll find her. We'll fix what we can. And as I walked away from that table, from the centerpieces, the fake champagne toasts, the hollow smiles, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a survivor who had finally stopped apologizing for living through someone else's damage. We left the engagement party without looking back. Derek drove in silence, hands tight around the wheel, while I sat next to him, staring out the window as the San Diego skyline blurred into suburban gray. My heart was thudding, not from anger anymore, but urgency. Like I had missed the last 5 years of Mia's life in a single blink, and every minute now was a minute lost. She was out there, in some stranger's house, probably not even remembering the woman who used to hum her to sleep with Fleetwood Mac songs. "I have a name," Derek said, breaking the silence. "Joyce Barrow, lives in Chula Vista. She's a registered foster mom, been in the system over a decade. The file says she's stable, no complaints, and Mia's been with her since late last year." That name felt foreign and intimate at once. Someone else had been calling her sweetheart and packing her lunches. Someone else had seen her birthday come and go while I was playing dead in Oregon. I clenched my fists in my lap. I want to meet her, now, before this guilt becomes cement. We pulled into a modest one-story house with a sun-faded porch and potted cacti lined along the railing. I hesitated before knocking, rehearsing what to say. "Hi, I'm the woman who raised Mia once and gave her back to the wrong person. Can I see her?" It sounded pathetic in my head, but it was all I had. Joyce opened the door slowly. She was in her 60s, warm-eyed, and wore a faded red sweatshirt that said, "I'm not tired, you are." She glanced at Derek, then at me, cautious. "You must be Kat." Not a question. My breath caught. Derek must have called ahead. I nodded. "Is she home?" Joyce opened the door wider. "She's in the backyard with her sketch pad. Doesn't say much, but she draws like she's been here before." The backyard was quiet except for wind chimes and the occasional scratch of pencil against paper. I spotted her sitting cross-legged under a lemon tree. Hair longer, darker, but the curve of her cheek, God, that was the same. For a second, I couldn't move. I just watched her sketch. She looked peaceful, unaware that her past had finally come looking for her. I took a careful step forward, not wanting to break the moment. "Mia?" She didn't look up. "Yes?" "It's me, Kat." Her pencil froze, but she didn't lift her eyes. "My mom used to talk about you. She said you went away." "She told you that?" "She told me lots of things," Mia said, still not looking at me. "Most of them weren't true." I knelt beside her. "Do you remember the song I used to sing when you were scared of the thunder?" My voice cracked, but I sang anyway. "Everywhere you go, I'll go too." Mia turned slowly, her eyes searching my face like a puzzle half-finished. "You always made toast with honey and cut off the crust. You hated the smell of bleach. You used to say I kicked like a soccer player in my sleep." I smiled through the sting in my eyes. "You remembered." She didn't smile. "Why did you let her take me?" My breath caught in my throat. "Because I believed she'd changed. I thought giving you back was the right thing." "It wasn't," she whispered. And that was the first crack in me I couldn't hide. Joyce stepped forward gently. "Mia, you don't have to talk if you're not ready," but Mia stood up. "I want to talk." She looked at me, really looked, and something in her gaze softened. "You left, but..." She left louder. I reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. I stared at the court petition draft on my kitchen table like it was a loaded weapon. Petition for guardianship of minor, Mia Bell Thompson. Just ink and paper, but it felt heavier than any decision I'd ever made. I wasn't trying to erase Vanessa. I was trying to stop the erasure of Mia. Joyce poured me coffee and sat across from me. "She's already calling you her safe person. That doesn't come from biology. That comes from presence." Her voice was calm, but there was a weight behind her words. Like she had seen 100 children get swallowed by the wrong definition of family. When I told my parents about filing for guardianship, Dad went silent. Mom didn't. "You can't do this to your sister. She's still her mother." I held her gaze across the speakerphone. She forfeited that right when she left Mia in a hospital waiting room with no ID. The silence that followed wasn't shock. It was disbelief. That I'd finally stopped playing the good daughter. I expected Vanessa to scream. Instead, she laughed. "You think one bedtime song and some weekend hugs make you a mother? "I pushed her out of me, Kat. You pushed her away." Her voice was cold and clear, like the click of a lock sealing a vault. "I'll see you in court. And when I do, I'll burn you down." The lawsuit fractured the family like glass under pressure. Dad refused to speak to me. Mom stopped answering my calls. The family group chat went silent. Only Derek remained beside me, helping with paperwork, gathering testimonies from Mia's school and pediatrician, driving me to legal consults like it was all instinct. "Truth is a slow bullet," he told me once, "but it always lands." Joyce agreed to testify on my behalf. Mia is calmer around Kat. She's more grounded. There's a security to their bond that even therapy hasn't matched. When I asked why she was willing to help, she said, "Because I fostered 42 children, and I know when one of them finally comes home." The night before the first hearing, Mia crawled into my bed. "If the judge asks me who I want, can I tell them the truth?" I kissed her forehead. "Always, but only if you're ready." She looked up at me, eyes unblinking. "I was ready the day you sang me that song under the lemon tree." I couldn't sleep. I kept rehearsing the argument in my head, not just for the judge, but for the universe. I wanted to scream, "Love isn't DNA. It's showing up. It's not walking away. It's staying even when it breaks you." I had broken once. I wasn't breaking again. The morning of the hearing, Vanessa walked into the courthouse like it was a red carpet. Full makeup, designer coat, perfect storm. She shot me a glance so venomous it nearly curdled my coffee. Behind her, our parents. Cold, loyal, blind. The judge was a woman in her 50s, sharp and direct. "We're not here to debate who loves Mia more. We're here to assess what environment best supports her health and emotional development." "Ms. Thompson," she said, looking at me, "do you have anything to say before we review evidence?" I stood. My voice didn't tremble. I raised Mia for almost 2 years. I taught her to tie her shoes, to breathe through nightmares, to use her words. Then I gave her back because I believed in my sister's recovery. I believed wrong. Mia deserves stability. She deserves to stop waiting for someone to show up. Vanessa scoffed. "She's manipulating everyone. She's obsessed. She wants a child because she can't have her own. That's what this is about." That cut deep. But I didn't flinch. Neither did the judge. After we adjourned, I found Mia waiting outside with Joyce. She ran up and held my hand. "Did I do okay?" I smiled. "You were brave. That's more than okay." The courtroom wasn't made for truth. It was built for process. Still, when I stepped inside that morning, wearing a plain navy dress and no makeup, I wasn't there to perform. I was there to win back the child I never stopped loving. Mia was seated in the waiting area with Joyce, holding a small stuffed fox. It used to be mine, a childhood relic I never thought would matter again. The judge looked tired but focused. Her tone was brisk. "Today we will hear the petition for permanent guardianship of Mia Bell Thompson, currently in temporary foster placement. Presenting parties, Catherine Elaine Thompson and Vanessa Rose Thompson. Let's proceed." Vanessa walked in flanked by a lawyer in an expensive suit, perfectly curled hair, a silk blouse like it was a brunch in Malibu. But it wasn't her outfit that rattled me. It was her calm, too calm, like she already knew the ending. Her eyes found mine, and she smiled. Not soft, not smug, surgical. Derek sat behind me, close enough to catch my breath if it fell apart. The judge motioned for me to speak first. I stood, spine straight. "Your Honor, I'm here today not because I want to take something from my sister. I'm here because I already lost Mia once. And if I don't speak now, she'll be lost again. But this time, for good." I submitted documentation, school letters, therapy progress notes, foster evaluations. Joyce testified clearly, affirming Mia's stability with me, her emotional shifts, her trust building. "It's not biology that healed that child," she said. "It's safety." Catherine gave her that. Then Vanessa took the stand. She cried on cue, just enough to glisten. "I was struggling when I left her, but I'm clean now, Your Honor, 2 years sober. I've done everything I could to get my daughter back. My sister's only here because she can't have a child of her own." Her lawyer presented documents, rehab letters, job applications, even a mother's journal Vanessa supposedly kept for Mia. But something felt off, too curated, too smooth. I looked at Derek. He gave me the signal. The judge turned to me. Miss Thompson, your rebuttal? I took a deep breath. With the court's permission, I'd like to submit new evidence, digital financial records, social services reports, and a statement from Julian Marks. There was a ripple in the room. Julian had been Vanessa's ex. But according to the records Derek and I uncovered, he was also her pipeline. Money, drugs, fake IDs. Vanessa stiffened. Objection. This is irrelevant. This is slander. The judge raised her hand. Let's see the evidence. One by one, the pages told a story. Vanessa had been claiming government benefits as a single mother while Mia was in state care. She forged documents to appear employed. She received monthly deposits from Julian, masked as child care support. It wasn't care, it was payment for silence. The final nail was a voice memo from Julian, submitted under subpoena. Vanessa, I'm done sending money. Mia's not your meal ticket anymore. Vanessa's face drained of color. Her lawyer fumbled. We weren't aware of this submission. The judge didn't blink. Ms. Thompson, anything else? I looked at her. Just this. Mia isn't a possession to reclaim. She's a person who's been abandoned more times than she can count. I'm not here to punish Vanessa. I'm here because I won't let that happen again. The judge recessed for 20 minutes. When she returned, her voice was firm. This court finds the evidence against Ms. Vanessa Thompson credible, substantial, and deeply troubling. Fraudulent benefit claims, abandonment, and emotional negligence weigh heavily against her fitness as a legal guardian. Vanessa shot up. You can't take her from me. She's mine. Her voice cracked into something feral. The judge banged the gavel. Order. Then she turned to me. Ms. Catherine Thompson, this court grants you permanent guardianship of Mia Bell Thompson, effective immediately. You are recognized as her legal parent, with all associated rights and responsibilities. I didn't cry. I exhaled. For the first time in years, I could breathe without guilt. Vanessa stormed out. My parents didn't look at me as they followed her. Derek stood and walked over to me, but I was already walking, out the door, into the hallway, into sunlight that didn't feel borrowed anymore. Mia ran into my arms. Is it over? I held her tight. No, baby, it's just beginning. It started with small things. Mia left her shoes by the door without asking. She curled next to me on the couch during thunderstorms. She called my name, not Aunt Cat, not Catherine, just Cat. But the way she said it carried weight. Like she knew it meant something more now, like it was safe. I didn't correct her, I waited. The house in Portland wasn't big, but it had a garden she could grow into. I painted her room in muted coral. She chose the curtains, light blue with little clouds. One night, while folding her clothes, I found a drawing tucked under her pillow. It was of two stick figures holding hands. One had wild brown hair and the word Mom above it. I didn't cry. I sat down and let the silence swallow me whole. Vanessa never showed up again. After the court's decision, she disappeared. Some said she went to Mexico. Others said she changed her name. My parents didn't fight it. For a while, they didn't speak to me. Then my father sent a postcard. It read, "We didn't understand. Now we do. No apology." But I didn't need one. Sometimes absence speaks louder than regret. Mia and I built routines. Mornings with messy pancakes. School drop-offs with pink backpacks. Nighttime teeth brushing to silly songs I made up on the spot. On Wednesdays, we saw her therapist. On Saturdays, we planted things. Basil, daisies, questions neither of us had answers for yet. And in between it all, we learned each other. I still remembered the weight of the silence I carried in Oregon. The days where breathing felt like betrayal. But now, the air felt different. Not easier, but earned. Mia once asked if I'd ever been scared to be a mom. I told her, every single day. But loving you makes it worth it. She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. One night in late spring, the sky bleeding into twilight, she climbed into bed beside me. Her voice was quiet but certain. "Good night, Mom," just that. A whisper. A vow. And for the first time, I didn't correct her either. I kissed her forehead and whispered back, "Good night, baby." And something in me, something I didn't know was still broken, clicked into place. Weeks later, at her school's open house, her teacher smiled and said, "Mia always talks about her mom. Says you make the best grilled cheese. I laughed. Not because it was true, but because it meant she'd chosen me. Not by blood, not by law, but by heart. I wasn't perfect. Some nights, I still sat on the porch wondering if I'd done enough, given enough, been enough. But then Mia would run out with a blanket, wrap it around both of us, and say, "This is our spot." And I'd believe it again, that we were building something real. That healing didn't have to be loud. Sometimes it looked like matching socks and shared secrets. Derek visited sometimes. He and Mia played card games in the kitchen, laughing over inside jokes I didn't understand. There was no romance between us, but something deeper, respect. A quiet loyalty born from war. When he left, he always said, "She's lucky to have you," and I always replied, "I'm the lucky one." Our story didn't end with fireworks or dramatic goodbyes. It ended with peace. With Mia dancing barefoot in the backyard. With a life held together by choice, not obligation. With a woman who had once been broken, now learning how to breathe again. Not a victim, not a martyr, just a mother.